everyone. Pull up a chair and get comfy.
Oh, girl, have we got stories to tell you all. The Never Alone podcast is about to begin, and you don't want to miss a minute.
Hi, and welcome back to our podcast, the Never Alone podcast. I'm your host, Iris Fisher-Smith, and I'm here with my co-host again, Karen Hearth Whitty, which is always a delight. And tonight we have a special guest. Her name is Cindy Kinney, and she's a friend of mine from Washington State. And Cindy is a woman who wears many hats. She's a mother, she's a wife, she's a grandmother, and she also happens to be my hairdresser. So if we don't like my hair, we can always blame her. Anyway, she's an accomplished horseman, and she also partners with her husband as they own their own medical lab business. And so she also in the past has done catering on top of everything else. So we don't have to worry about Cindy being busy. But the most important thing to me is that she's my friend. Cindy and I met 7 years ago. And, basically we met at church initially. Then we met at a women's breakfast. And then from there, I discovered that she did hair. And so she started doing my hair. And then just after that, we just developed a friendship. We started going out together, our husbands, and, we went out as couples. We started to get together on New Year's Eve, right, Cindy, with Laura, our friend Laura, and her husband. And then just shortly after that, I believe her husband passed away, and we were at that funeral together. So Cindy and I, Laura's husband, yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, thank you for clarifying.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah, it was when Laura's husband had passed away that Cindy and I had an opportunity to come alongside of her and comfort her together. And that's what drew us together even more so as friends, So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, Cindy, is you grew up in Washington State, and Karen and I grew up on the East Coast in the Boston area. Two totally, completely, 1,300 miles apart, something like that, completely different cultures. And yet,
30,000,
yeah. Is it 3,000? Or how many miles apart are we?
13,000, I would think.
I don't remember. We're really far apart. 13,000 miles. Yeah, maybe it is. Anyway,
Coast to
Washington
coast.
State is very different than the Northeast, and yet Cindy and I have found commonalities in friendship, over the years that we've been together. And one of the ways that I felt we really bonded was through not only just having fun together, but some of the hard things that we faced together, like Laura's husband's funeral. Laura is a close friend of ours, and we get together monthly, for dinners with her and her niece now, and we have some great times. But one of the things I discovered when I came to Washington State, and people told me about this, is that people in Washington State tend to be more to themselves, and they isolate a little more. And so in order for me to have a friend, I had to really reach out. That was suggested to me by somebody I knew when I got here. They said, if you really want to have friends, they're not going to just come to you. You have to go to them. And I did, and I found it very rewarding, and I found some really nice people, and Cindy was one of them. So, Cindy, you've lived in Washington State most of your life?
I was born and raised in Washington State.
Yes. So how do you think?
I blame garage door openers for the fact that people don't socialize as much. Because
get in and get out quick.
Drive in
well, maybe it's because it's raining all the time.
I don't agree with that, but okay. But I do have web feed. I have to tell you, I do have web feed, so rain doesn't bother me.
So
that's funny.
Based on our conversation, Cindy, over the years as we've gotten to know each other, what are the differences that you see between the East Coast and the West Coast? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I know you and what you've told me about, what kind of, environment you were raised in, the community environment, and just close knit families and activities together and cooking in the kitchen together. And I mean, just doing a lot of those things
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
so that, I mean, that's different than what I guess what I would see as normal. I mean, I think there's a sense of more independence or just individuality,
Yes.
maybe,
Yep. That's a good way to put it.
in the Northwest.
Yeah. More independence and more individuality in Washington State. Wouldn't you say so, Karen? Because you grew up where I did. Don't you think
Yeah,
that
I guess
Boston
so. Yeah, we
people,
were
we
a
connect,
little more conservative. Well, it's so funny you say that because there's always been a funny term about New England and us being the frozen chosen. So, and it's about the fact that we're not as good about doing it. And I actually wonder how much inclement weather has to do with that. So I'm up in Maine now and we're not really good about getting out into the neighborhood until it's warm. So,
But at least you get
and
out.
the garage door thing is hysterical. That makes sense to me. I totally get it. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting to me because when I've gone out to the West Coast and gone to California, I find everybody super friendly. Actually, people in Maine are very nice though, and they are very, very friendly. I can't say it's actually more so than Massachusetts, I think, but it varies.
It does vary. I found that even though I was sort of told to be, to get out there and find friends, that they wouldn't just come to me.
Mm,
I found that over time it wasn't necessarily true because the people I was finding, like Cindy, I found them to be very
yeah,
friendly and helpful and kind and wanting to connect and care. Was some of them a little more
yeah,
reserved than I was used to? Yes. But, everybody's
yeah.
different, you know. So hang on, okay? All right. So Cindy will be coming back on in just a minute here. What did you think about the fact that she wore so many hats? She's a busy lady.
I think that's amazing. People who put themselves out there and just, I feel like I'm finally
Will
getting old enough
become.
to try. Well, I want to try new things, but oh, great, there she is, yay!
Let's see if I can
Oh, you're
back
back,
after
yay!
technical difficulties.
Yeah. Hi. Oh, I know. Welcome back, Cindy. We're excited to see you. I wanted to
Thank you.
talk to you about this friend to friend thing that I think that you kind of have done an outline on, and I'm curious what prompted you to write this and to have an interest in writing about, the best way to be a good friend. And I love it because this resonated with me because in my lifetime I've actually read a lot of this and you know, you're right. Being a friend is very intentional.
Right.
So I'd love your take on that.
Well, I think just because of the times that we're living in right now, there's just so many distractions, with cell phones and I mean, just the endless shows that you can watch
Yeah.
and I mean, just so much going on around us all the time
Yeah.
that can, distract us. And I think that to be a good friend, you really need to be present. I mean, where you're making a conscious effort to, be a good listener, hopefully making eye contact, I mean, all those types of things that make good communication so that you can really read and hear and see and, observe, what your friend is going
Right.
through and, to be able to really hear what they're saying and, get a better
Hmm.
sense of what's going
Hmm.
on.
That's
So have
right.
you had the
That's a good
opportunity to
point.
have those? I've had those women in my life that I know keenly, and you really do become in tune to one another, and you get to know and read one another. And I think that when you get together, from what Iris is saying, you infuse each other, which I think is really neat because I think that I don't know that men get the same that we do, but women seem to feed into each other for something we kind of need to our core.
Yeah. So,
You
Cindy,
there?
do you
Have
have
we
any?
got you?
Um, Karen, do you have any other questions?
What's that?
Well, no, I love that. I wanted to hear just a little bit about you talk about having fun. I want to know what kind of fun you have.
Well, we found several things that we enjoy. Well, number one, we have the love of
Yes.
horses.
Nice.
So that's one thing. We have the love of cooking. So we've done, a lot of cooking together and just relaxing, enjoying each other, playing games, you know, laughing, of course, is very important. But we also, we share a lot of tough stuff
Yes.
too, and we try to, be good listeners and to encourage one another and just really hear what we're saying to each
Yeah.
other so that we can, you know, be that encouragement so that we can, have a really good understanding of what we're going through. And so, I mean, that just builds, trust and loyalty. And I mean, you just feel closer to the
The bonding.
person,
Yeah.
the
Have you
bonding.
always found that easy or hard? I know we were talking about friendships, and I was pretty guarded as a kid growing up, and then I found myself being a little less guarded in my 20s. And I really got my first, little friendships when we were younger were different because the way you invested. So as I got older, I found that to be a huge blessing. Did you find it hard or easy, branching out?
Well, I mean, for me, I'm definitely a little more guarded
Yeah,
when I'm first meeting somebody. I
me too.
observe a lot. I ask questions. I try to get a sense of what they're about. I really have only had a few what I would consider very good friends in my life. People that that you can tell them
Anything. Yeah.
anything. It's not going to go any
Right.
further. They're not going to judge you.
Yeah,
They're just going to try to encourage you or just, be a good listener, sympathize or, just to show that they're, in your court, that they're there for you, you know. So, yeah, it is hard. It is hard for me to
trust.
really trust
Been there.
and to know that,
Hmm.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yet,
Yeah,
Cindy,
yeah.
and yet, Cindy, I
But
saw
it's
you
really cool
reaching
when you
out
can.
yeah, Karen, I was just going to say that, and yet I saw Cindy reaching out a lot. She reached out to me initially in the very beginning.
Yeah,
She was very interested because I was a new person. I remember going to a breakfast.
yeah.
There was a women's breakfast with the church, and she sat right next to me and sat down and smiled and started talking.
Hmm.
I would not have thought you were reserved. I found it. I thought it was
Uh,
nice.
But
You
no,
know.
I mean, I'm not, I don't show to be reserved. I'm very friendly and
Yeah.
outgoing
yeah.
and all that. But to let somebody
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
close,
Totally.
to let somebody really get in your kind of
Your
inner
inner circle. Yeah.
being of who you are and what you're going through, and to be able to
Totally.
really share and to know that they're truly, for you, Iris, I mean, you've always shown that you really care. You care about what's going on, and you speak life. I mean, it's encouraging and it's friendly and it's uplifting. And so for me, when I'm feeling like, oh, I'm just, the day's just kind of feeling, not real encouraged or real happy about something, or I'm struggling with something, really you're probably the first person I think
Oh,
about
that's
to
sweet.
That's
call.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just because I know that you're going to share what's going on with you, I get to share what's going on with me. You're, and we get a laugh about, we joke, we laugh, but we also, you
Cry.
know, showing that we
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, and that we encourage, and that, that we're important to each other, and that we're making that time. And there's times that, you know, I mean, the phone rings and you're like, oh, I'm busy, but you see who's calling and you're like, no, I'm going to
Right.
answer
Yeah.
this because this person matters to me. This
Yeah.
person values me. This person's going to be there for me,
Yeah.
and so it takes effort.
Yeah.
We have to push ourselves because a lot of times I think that all of us, feel overwhelmed and we just want to shut things out, shut down, just zone out and not, invest in another person or have to take time to communicate with somebody else. But it's so vitally
Yes.
important because it builds you up and it just helps you to, take that next step,
Totally.
Well,
Yeah.
instead of just staying.
the scripture that comes to
Yeah.
mind is that a friend loveth at all times, and that's a true friend. And it goes back to the scripture from my book.
Unconditional.
Two are better than one. When one falls, the other one picks the other one up. And pity the man who's alone. When you have a close friend like that you can say anything and be yourself, and I've said this in other podcasts,
Yeah.
as long as we're not being mean, it's okay. Because we can't be any different than who we are. But a true friend will love you for who you are, the way you are, and they'll love you through the good times and the hard times. And Karen and Cindy, you both have done that for me personally. You're both like sisters, you know, and I'm so grateful for both of you. I'm
Yeah.
very blessed that way. But again, I think it has a lot to do with if you want to, and it says this in the Bible too, if you want to have a friend, you got to show yourself friendly, you know? And
Yeah.
that's what I've learned in
I
Washington
think for
State,
me,
Cindy. Yeah, I had to do that. I had to show myself friendly. And I found some really nice friends, you know? But Cindy is probably at the top of the list.
yeah. But I like to hear, I'm thrilled to hear
Well,
you have that, because I have that here where I actually have a few amazing friends, and they've been in my life for over 30 plus years, and they are who sustain me. I know they're there no matter what. And I love that you both have that out there, because it does matter that you have somebody nearby too.
Please excuse this brief interruption for a shameless commercial. Remember, you can get your own copy of Iris's book, Never Alone, at irisfsmith.com.
In person.
yeah. Well, and we were talking about before about, coming from such different upbringings and that type of stuff that we've had to work through some things in regards to understanding one another and
Yeah.
how we receive
Yeah.
things, or
Yeah.
what's important, or
The love language.
what's helpful or not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had to communicate that. I've just, we had to say, what do you mean by that? Or this is really helpful to me if you approach me
Yes.
this way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think those are important things to understand about somebody, because people you can say something to one person and they don't think anything of it.
Right.
You can say the exact same thing to another person and they're extremely
Yeah.
offended. And so, and I think that's why it's really good to see people, have that eye contact, get to know them, and then be able to verbalize and say, you see a facial expression or a body expression, and you can say, did you hear what did you get from what I just said, or did I offend you, or am I making sense? And so then that that dialogue begins to say, you know what, I was confused about what you were saying. Can you clarify to me? Or you know what, I took offense to that. Why did you say that to me? And then you can say, oh my gosh, that wasn't my intent at all, or
It's called
whatever.
communication. It's communication, and
Yeah, I know,
it's really
right?
important.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it's very important to say things in a way that you're not offending somebody. In other words, you can either wound somebody with your words or you can heal them. And I've learned over the years working with people that if I'm in doubt about something, I don't say anything. I just get real quiet, you know, because if I don't know where the person is coming from, out of consideration to them, I just will get real quiet and listen to them and really try to meet them where they're at. Listen to them. What are they trying to say? You know? And so my conclusion has been over the years, if I make it less about me and more about them, it works every time because love always wins. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because you said that you get real quiet, and that would be a sign to me. If I saw that you were quiet, I'd be like, "Are you okay?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Well, all it is.
you know what I mean? Then I would be like questioning, something's going on here, and as a friend, then I'm gonna probe into that. You know what I mean? Because I understand you, and if you're acting abnormally, then that gives me the opportunity to be able to clarify where we're at,
Well, it's a different
in
personalities too,
communication.
because I tend to be more reserved. And I learned very early on when I was young, and my mother said this to me. She said, if you're in doubt, don't say anything, because if you don't say anything, they can't say you said anything. But maybe that's not always true based on what you're just saying, because, again, when I was very young, I was in a coma and I had a brain injury, and it took me a long time to learn to communicate. And I think that's why that's like that for me. I would rather just not say anything than feel like I'm just jibber jabbing and being misunderstood, you know? And so,
Yeah, well, we learned together
mhm,
too that because of things that have happened to you and how you keep yourself
mhm,
organized, then you verbalize a lot of the
yeah.
process, and I'm an action person.
You're
And
what?
so the minute Iris would say something to me, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I got to jump on this and I got
And
to
I was
do
like, what
it."
are you
Funny.
doing? What are you
You
doing
know,
that
and so
for?
we
Yep.
Right. And so then we had to work through that and, understand each other. She has to verbalize it to kind of help the
Yep.
process.
Process.
I
Yep.
need to just, you know, receive it and then figure out what the plan is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so that was learning about one another as
Right.
well, different personalities and
But
how we
the bottom
Yeah.
respond.
line is we were meeting each other where we were at, and we learned about each other, and it
Yep.
caused us to bond and to bond solidly where we really trust
Yeah.
each other. And we know it's okay, you know? When Cindy has her moments, I understand. When Karen has her moments, I understand. It's all about love. It's all about
Very
love.
funny.
Thank you for your grace.
But it really is, on a serious note, it's all about love. If you love your friend,
Yep.
you'll just, be there for them and
You kind of
understand.
figure it out. Mm-hmm. You
Yeah,
figure it out. I have
you
another
know.
friend who's very, very close to me and very similar to what Cindy's saying. And we had some funny interactions when we were first became really close friends. And she finally said to me that she realized that sometimes I'm just talking it out and it's not going to happen. I'm like, yeah, I'm just spitballing. So kind of funny to hear you both
You're
say
still
that.
calling. I wanted to bring up
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead, Cindy. I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say that I feel like with the texting society that we have, people aren't clarifying. People aren't fully understanding what the meaning or the
Mm-hmm.
message
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily asking those clarifying questions. And so I think it's really important for people to understand that that would really
mhm,
help you get the best picture of what the communication is
You can't
when you
take,
ask those clarifying
and you
questions,
don't hear the
or
tone of
make a phone
voice.
call or make a
Mm-hmm.
date. Go sit, go find, hook up at a coffee shop and spend some quality time and really get to understand what each other's
again, it's
saying.
meeting the other person where they're
So
at and understanding and listening. We have to be, there is another scripture, and I love scripture. That's why I keep saying this. We need to be, it says that we need to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And there's a reason for that. It helps you to understand your friend or this acquaintance that you just met. How can you get to know them if you don't really listen? But look at our culture and all the fighting that's going on. It's all lack of communication. I mean, you have people that will
mhm.
say to somebody else, you said this and this is how you feel. And the other person is standing there going, I wasn't thinking that. Was I there? And it's
Yeah.
not even fair. And it starts wars over miscommunication and lack of understanding. And I'll tell you, that really gets to me because it's sad, because now you have this argument taking place that didn't even need to happen. Nobody meant any harm. It's like you wonder what about that. You know what I'm saying? You guys have any thoughts on that? Because it's really very hard for our culture right now because of that. The lack of communication, too much texting, not enough FaceTime, and I'm not talking about FaceTime on the computer. I'm talking about, like, tomorrow night, Cindy and I are getting together with our friends and we're going to have dinner. We sit and we look at each other and we
Yep.
talk. And like Cindy said, if there's a misunderstanding or somebody doesn't hear well, because I have hearing aids, you say, "What did you mean?" And it's okay. It's okay to do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
guess what? You have a nice communication and nobody's mad.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I
I
it's
think it's hard because with texting too is like, what is the protocol? Was I not supposed to put an exclamation on that? Did that mean that somebody took that I was angry, or and
Misunderstanding.
so what are all the
Yeah.
rules?
I
Yeah.
think that it's too bad you have to even question that. I hate to sound like that, but I just think, it's like you said, it's about the relationship and how closely you get to, and that takes time to develop, I'm sure. But I
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's hard. I mean, I think we've always said that if I'm somebody's a close friend of mine, my friends, very thank goodness, if you know someone or they know me, they know I love them unconditionally, and I would never
Hmm.
intentionally, you know, hurt their feelings. So I think once you get to that closeness, and I wish everybody had what I have. These women have sustained me, and I crack up about the listening part because when we get together, nobody listens. We all blah, 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 like that to start with, but then we do settle down. But it's like
Yeah.
the husbands are like, "What are you saying?" It's
I
like,
wanted to
yeah.
say something else too. Like 2 days ago, my aunt that I'm very close to passed away. It was bittersweet in a way because she was 84 years old and she was suffering. It was her time. But I noticed that the two of you both said to me, how can we, I mean, you didn't come out and say it, but you insinuated, how can we help? And that brought me so much
That's fine.
comfort. And how do we go through things in life when we're hurting? And how sad it is if you don't have a friend that you can call and say, I'm hurting.
I know.
And they go, oh, how can I, let me listen. Let me pray for you, whatever. Karen said to me before we got on, she said, maybe we can talk for a few minutes. And I said, yeah, that would be nice. And then Cindy, the other day when I was talking to her, she goes, oh, poor baby. And you know something that really, really helped,
Oh,
you know,
it
because I knew she
does. I
meant
get
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew she meant it, you
Yeah.
know? And I knew that if I had a crisis, I could call her, and it's vice versa. She's called me when she was having a hard time, and I'm like, and then you listen, 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 listen. That's the best thing you can do because we don't always know what to say, we don't always know what to do, but it has more to do sometimes with just being there and just listening and being quiet and just your presence alone says a lot. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any relationship takes work,
Well, you have to cultivate it. Yep.
investing
Yep.
time. Yes.
A
Yes.
friend of mine used
Mm-hmm.
to always say to me,
Yeah.
she said, in order to have a really good relationship, it does take time and you have to cultivate it. And that's why we can't be best friends with everybody. That's why we have so many acquaintances because
Right.
we
And
don't
it
have
does
the
take
time and the
time.
energy. Yeah. And not every personality connects either,
Yeah.
you know? Even though Cindy and
Correct.
I grew up in opposite ends of the earth, we found a commonality and we did click, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's
So
awesome because I know it's important.
very important. And like I said, a friend loveth at all times. And I want to encourage our viewers to remember some of what we've said tonight and how important it is to have a friend. And if you're shy, find one person somewhere because there's somebody out there waiting for you. There's a lot of people out there that would love to have a friend. And if you're feeling
Mm.
alone and isolated, go out and find that person. You might find them, I mean, for goodness sake, at a doctor's office, a grocery, you never know. You never know where you're going to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Again, I met, Cindy at a breakfast. And then my friend Rachel that we've
Yeah.
had on before, I met her at a breakfast. With Karen, I met her next door.
In a sandbox.
Well, and we
In
had
a
talked about
sandbox.
too that
Yeah.
a good friend is somebody, I mean, it is a give and take. I mean, it's not going to be really a good friendship or a good fit as a good friend that someone else is just taking, 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 or you're just,
Well,
wanting
yeah,
to take, take, take. I mean, it goes both
that's why two
ways,
are better than one.
to
Yeah,
invest.
because and that's why my relationships, my closest
Yeah.
relationships work because it is about both of us. It should always be about both of us. I said this to a friend of mine the other day that I met that's fairly new in my life. And I said, I want you to understand that I expect that our relationship should work two ways. I don't want it to be just about me. And she was really blessed by that and wants to get together more often when I have time. But I do
Yeah.
love people and I'm so grateful for each one that comes into my life. But you know.
Well, I am grateful to you as well, Iris.
Yeah. Well, I
Thank
love
you for
getting
being
to
my
meet you,
friend.
Cindy. This has been nice to see that. Actually,
This
this is
has
the
been
first
great.
of your friends ever since you've been. Yeah, this has been nice to see that. So this is your second friend, Rachel. Well, this third actually. This is nice that I've gotten to meet them. You have
Have you
three
read my
friends,
book?
Iris. I know
Um,
you have a lot more. It's so funny.
I just really love people. But anyway, I just want to thank our viewers for spending time with us again. Thank you, Cindy, for coming on tonight and sharing and being my friend, and Karen
Yeah,
too,
thanks for
as
having me.
always. And um, you know, next time you tune in, our viewers I'm talking to, remember our opening with the dogs, even they're friends. So
Yeah,
we'll see you.
they're friends.
We'll see you next time. And thanks again for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Take care.
See you next time.
Wow, that was awesome, wasn't it?
I know those stories were really something.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time when we share more stories from Iris's book, Never Alone.
Order your copy of Never Alone at irisfsmith.com today.